In the last episode, I had mentioned discovering the explorer, Richard F. Burton, who lived, I believe, the most adventurous life ever. This was while I was traveling around South America. Richard Francis Burton was born March 19, 1821, in southwest England, about 200 miles from London. During his formative years, he and his family would move back and forth between Italy, France, and England. Richard showed a talent for languages in this time, learning French, Italian, Neapolitan, Latin, and several dialects. As a teenager, he learned Greek from a merchant in Marseille and had a romance with a gypsy, learning her language. He would attend Oxford, one of the world's great universities, studying Arabic, but was expelled for attending horse races. He also studied and learned from a number of teachers who were adept in the esoteric. From 1842 to 53, he served in the English Army in what is now India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. While there, Burton became a proficient speaker of Hindustani, Gujarati, Punjabi, Sindhi, Saraiki, and Marathi, as well as Persian and Arabic. He would spend 12 hours a day in study when he first arrived in Gujarat, today in India. He memorized many of the Hindu religious textbooks and studied under a Brahmin, becoming a snake priest in which he handled live cobras. Next was a transfer to Sindh, now Pakistan, where his interest changed from Hindu to Islam, becoming a master Sufi, a Sikh, and memorizing the Quran. He kept a group of monkeys to learn their language, learned 60 words. He worked as a spy and disguised himself as an Indian to filtrate the various tribes of the north to understand their culture. This was done numerous times over the next couple of decades, going into disguise for safety or to better understand local customs. Though not to the extent he did, I had to disguise myself from time to time in my travels, as I knew if it were known I was an American, I would have put my life in jeopardy. The English had been defeated in Afghanistan at this time, which was disappointing to Burton, as he had hoped to fight at the front. Known for his ferocity in fight, and was said to have fought more enemies than any man of his time, it was said in the English army he was unequaled as a marksman, horseman, swordsman, and in fencing. When he returned to England, he would attract crowds to watch his sword duels, challenging and defeating expert swordsmen who would wear the standard ironclad clothing, worn not to allow the penetration of the sword through the skin. But Richard wore normal clothing. Next it was on to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, in 1853, and Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which is a 5-day ceremony during a portion of the last month of the Islamic calendar. If caught in Mecca, the punishment of death would have been sure. He was not the first European to do this. Swiss Johann Burckhardt had done this in 1812. Burton went through various disguises en route to Mecca, including an Afghan and an Indian doctor. He injured his foot in Medina by stepping on a poisonous thorn, and the injury was problematic for the remainder of the trip. He joined a caravan for the journey. The caravan was attacked along the way by Bedouins. A dozen in the caravan were killed. They crossed the empty quarter of Saudi Arabia in 11 months, the largest sand desert in the world. After Hajj, it was on to Egypt, where he was accused of shooting a woman. The punishment was having his feet caned 17 times. Then it was on to Bombay, India. The following year, 1854, he was the first European to enter the city of Harar in Ethiopia. A belief existed there that when the first Christian entered Harar, the city would fall. And with many Ethiopians being Christian, suspicion intensified of all those not from Harar. Burton disguised himself as an Arab. He talked of the struggles crossing Ethiopia with lion attacks and at night the venomous bites of ants 3/4 of an inch long, what we now know as driver ants. A group of Somali Tribesmen attacked, but when Burton showed them what a revolver could do, they suggested the attack was not to be taken seriously, but was a joke. In 1855, while on an expedition in Somalia, he and his party were attacked late into the night. Some 200 Somali tribesmen were hurtling spears through the air. Burton was distracted and briefly mistaken a Somali guide as one of the attackers, and during the distraction, a thrown spear impaled his jaw, making its way out of the other side of his face and knocking out 4 teeth. Burton continued to fight without removing the spear, and after the fight would look for his men lost in the fight. He was unconcerned about the spear hanging from his face. What a sight he must have been walking around with this. This is the tenacity and ferociousness Richard had been known for. He had the spear removed the next day. He proudly bared the scar across his face for the remainder of his life. The wounds did force Burton to return to England. In the next episode, I'll continue with the adventures of his early life, an unrestrained time for him, and a continuance of what I have presented in this episode, a life like no other in exploration. Please support the channel by subscribing, liking, and letting others know. Thank you so much for watching.